Breakfast. It's time for On the Box on the radio. It's a bunch of TV talk with Chris Philpott from stuff.co.nz, the On the Box blog there. Good morning, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Very well, thank you very much. And first up, the GC controversy continues. This time, NZ On Air stirring the pot by releasing the original proposal for the GC. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the GC, of course, one of the most popular shows on TV at the moment. One of my favourites.
Is it? No, is it? Hang on. Is it actually?
It's one of the highest rating shows for TV3, I would say. I haven't looked into it too heavily, but at a guess, I would say it's one of their top 5 shows of the week.
Sure, right.
It's their highest rating on Wednesday nights. I know that much. Yeah. Maybe behind 3 News, but it's pretty high rating. Anyway, it's popular, is the point. And I mean, rightly so. It's a Jersey Shore clone. People like watching Trainwreck TV. You know, there's plenty of good reasons. There's some hot ladies on there. There's plenty of good reasons to watch it. I mean, it's not the worst thing that's ever been put on TV, even though I might have written that. But it's a lot different than the original proposal. As you say, New Zealand On Air late last week, released the original proposal for the GC back when it was a show called Golden Mozzies, and it was a show about. I mean, it was about Māori living on the Gold Coast and about how they keep their Māori identity and get assistance from the folks back home and as they try and live their lives in the Gold Coast and succeed. And it was a lot different than what the show has ended up being. For example, the characters. There's 7 characters listed in the original proposal. One of them is a guy who owns a barbershop. He's about to franchise it and open up 5 new locations. Another guy is a safety inspector for a roofing company. There's another guy that's studying a degree in health and nutrition. And then there's Tame, or Tommy as he's called in the show, who's the only one of the 7 on the original proposal who has actually made it to the final show. So the characters on the show now are different than the ones that they proposed having on the show. And it's just things like that, a different direction. It seemed like from the proposal that it was a more serious show. It was going to be more documentary-like, a lot more about how they're dealing with the change in culture, with holding on to their own cultural identity in a country where the Māori identity isn't prevalent, and even more than that, you could say that Australia really has done a bad job with its own native cultures. So you wonder, though,
where's the safety valve in here for NZ On Air, where they get a proposal and they say, hey, this looks great, we're going to fund this. Where's the safety valve when the actual product differs from the proposal, where NZ On Air says, no, we want our money back now, thanks very much?
Well, I mean, there isn't one. The only thing New Zealand On Air has said is that they're going to review the proposal after the series is done. They'll assess whether the series was a good investment for them, and that helps them assess whether they're going to fund it further in the future. But as you say, no accountability really. In New Zealand On Air, as far as I understand, they stay out of it anyway. So they just say, here's your money. We're not going to have any editorial control over your show. You just make what you're making and we'll figure it out later. Now, though, you wonder if perhaps there does need to be a little bit more accountability. You know, 420,000 isn't a big amount of money in the scheme of things. It's a lot less than many shows are getting. The Strongman documentary from last week that aired on TV3 got twice as much money as that. So, it's not a huge amount of money. But that said, perhaps there should be some accountability to make sure that the money being handed out is being spent the way that New Zealand On Air were told it was going to be spent.
What is nice about the release of this proposal, and it's available in PDF form off the NZ On Air website, is it's now a blueprint for any aspiring TV maker or producer who wants to put together a proposal for a TV show. You've got the template right there. There you go.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's, I mean, looking at it from that perspective, it's definitely a lot more intense than I thought it would have been. You just kind of think they would go to it and say, here, TV3 have said that they'll air this for us. Here's what we basically want to do. Give us some money. But it was a lot more intense. Like, I didn't think that they would have the characters lined up for the proposal. They wouldn't have people ready to do the show. They wouldn't have such an intense amount of background detail about, the cultural drive behind making the show. And certainly, I mean, they did the work there. I hate to say it, but the proposal actually sounds like a good show. I would watch that. It sounds a lot better than the GC has ended up being. So,
Yeah.
As I say, there probably needs to be a bit of accountability there. The money's not worth really getting worked up over, but perhaps we should be a little bit concerned that New Zealand On Air is functioning that way.
Okay, let's talk about good television now, Chris.
Indeed.
Let's talk about Breaking Bad and Season 5 on the way.
Yeah, Season 5 is it was announced last August that they were getting 16 episodes for the 5th season. Sometime between August and now, it was announced that the 16 episodes will be split into 2 shorter seasons of 8 episodes apiece. And now we found out that the first half of Season 5, the first 8 episodes, Season 5-1, if you like, will be premiering on July 15th in America, which is July 16th here in New Zealand.
Exciting.
Yeah, well, and it should pick up exactly where it left off with Season 4, with Walt kind of grabbing the reins, taking over the town, as it were. I don't want to say too much without giving it away.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the first 8 start in July this year. The final 8 will start July 2013. So it's kind of a sneaky way of making the show last an extra year. It will have lasted 6 years at that point.
No.
But it won't be 6 seasons long.
Oh, I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about that.
No, well, I mean, it's TV trickery. They did the same with The Sopranos' final season. Season 6 was 24 episodes spread over 2 years, I think. So it was essentially 2 seasons, but it was just one long season over the course of 2 years.
Because eight is so short, and it's not until because most seasons are 12 episodes long. And it's not until the 8th one that it's really quite getting really intense and whatnot. No doubt it will get quite intense, and you've got to wait another year. We've already waited a year. We've got to wait another year for another 8 episodes as opposed to 12.
It won't be an entire year. I mean, it'll be probably like 46 weeks.
Yeah.
46 weeks or something like that. It won't be a full year. But no, I know what you mean. The Walking Dead did the same thing. Their first season was only 6 episodes long.
But it was
and then
2 months.
It wasn't quite a year before it came back.
No, it was only 2 months or something. It was like 3 months, 2-3 months. It was nothing. The gap in between. Oh, you're talking about the first series. Oh, you're talking about the first series of 6 episodes. Okay.
The first season was only 6 episodes, and then the first half of the second series was nearly a year later that it started. So it's been done, and the interest will still be there. I don't have any qualms about that. We saw with Mad Men. Mad Men had a huge gap between its 4th and 5th season, and now the 5th season is arguably its best and most successful so far. So, I'm not too worried about the big gap. It's a pain. I don't like waiting, but for Breaking Bad, I'll do it. It should be pretty exciting.
Okay.
I'm going to have to break my no downloading resolution.
Are you?
Just
I thought you'd already broken it for something else. Am I right?
Well, no, not really. I've been watching Game of Thrones. I've been watching Game of Thrones a day ahead of New Zealand, just because Mondays are quite packed. So I don't know if that counts.
Therefore, it certainly does count, Chris Philpott. It does. Absolutely count. But I don't blame you for Breaking Bad, because who knows when that's going to come here, because they have not even screening the last series.
They're in the middle of season 3 at the moment on TV4.
Yeah. Old news.
Best case scenario is they just play it straight through and we get it in New Zealand maybe in September.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. I don't want to talk about the actual show or the episode for too long, but Shortland St, we should talk about it. 20 years this week.
Yeah, it turns 20 this week. It started May 25th, 1992. I don't know if you can remember that far back. I can remember watching the first episode, complete with its "You're Not in Guatemala Now," Dr. Roper.
Yep.
And it celebrates that birthday on Friday. It passes 5,000 episodes next week as well. I mean, this is the highest rated show, scripted show on TV, and it's also the only local show that doesn't require any public funding. And I mean, you could argue it's launched the careers of just about every famous person in this country. I mean, it's a massive success. What I wanted to ask you is this: why do you think it is this country's most hated television show?
Well, I guess it's polarizing, I suppose, in that you're either a fan or you're not, and you don't really sort of sit on the fence. And but I think anyone who's not a fan probably was a fan right there at that beginning, that very first episode back in 1992. I don't think there's anyone in New Zealand who hasn't watched Shortland St for a period of time at some point in their life.
I wrote that on the blog, that that anyone who says they haven't watched at least 5 episodes of Shortland Street is lying.
Yes.
And I believe that. Unless you're a newborn baby, you've seen probably bits of 5 episodes at least.
I think I went through a couple of bouts. The first 2 or 3 years, and then a break, and then I think I started watching at university again for a couple of years, and then haven't since.
As you do, you have to procrastinate somehow.
Exactly.
But, I mean, I wrote a blog about it yesterday. I've worked out on the blog the 20 greatest moments in Shortland Street history by getting the readers to vote on their favourites, and put the first 10 of those 20 up yesterday. And the very first comment number 1 on the blog says, 20 years of torture, when will this madness stop? And that's the standard response to anything Shortland Street related. I mean, for whatever reason, despite how successful the show has been, and it has been a massive success by every objective measure, the response is always vitriolic. There's always kind of this hatred underneath, and it's a lot stronger than on a show like Home and Away or Neighbours, which, I mean, for my money, I think Shortland Street's better than those shows anyway. I don't see how Shortland Street is worse than Home and Away. The acting's no worse, the writing's no worse. Yet if you ask someone, do you like Home and Away, they'll go, nah. If you say, do you like Shortland Street, they'll either say yes, or they'll say, oh my goodness, it's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I just don't understand why the anger.
Well, I guess it harks back to a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about cultural cringe. See, cultural cringe doesn't come into play with Home and Away, but it probably does with Shortland Street.
Well, it does too, and there's probably a bit of tall poppy in there as well. People try and drag it down because it is the most successful TV show this country's ever produced. For a TV show like Shortland Street, which is 5 half hours a week, the production on it's massive. For it to be not funded at all by New Zealand On Air is incredible, really.
Well, it's kept
it rates so highly that the advertising pays for it, and that's a pretty amazing feat itself. So I just don't understand the hatred. I thought I would ask you why you think it might be.
Well, it's kept an industry sort of afloat, and actors in work. There isn't an actor, New Zealand actor that does things on movies or anything now that hasn't actually been in Shortland Street.
No, well, that's right.
Yeah, or indeed any New Zealander that hasn't been in Shortland Street, probably.
Yeah, I think I might have been in it too. I can't remember.
I probably was. I don't know.
People probably admit it and they don't know.
Yeah.
Have you been in Shortland Street? Yeah,
probably.
I was. I have no idea.
That's the answer, probably. What's coming up on TV this week?
Well, a couple of big things tonight. Speaking of Kiwi productions, the finale of The Almighty Johnsons season 2 is at 8:30 p.m. on TV3, right after, you guessed it, the GC. And I've really enjoyed the second series of the Johnsons. We might talk about this next week. I know you're not a fan, but I just like talking about it, so we might just talk about it anyway.
Sure.
And following that is the premiere of Breakout Kings, which is the new show from the guys behind Prison Break, and that starts at 9:30 p.m. on TV3. Breakout Kings, another show which a New Zealand channel is putting on after it's been cancelled. So well done there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Shortland Street, there's a couple of Shortland Street specials on this week. 2020 is doing a Shortland Street special tomorrow night at 9:30, and then on Friday night there's an hour of bloopers on TV2 from 7:30 p.m. Where American Idol normally sits. The American Idol finale is on Friday night as well, but that's not as big a deal as anything else. And then 8:30 on Friday, Sherlock, which is absolutely fantastic. The TV1 mini-series about Sherlock Holmes starring Benedict Cumberbatch comes to an end on Friday night, 8:30 on 1, with an episode titled The Reichenbach Fall, which is actually based on The Final Problem, one of Holmes's most famous stories. So there you go.
Yes.
Big few days.
Yes, yeah, really recommend Sherlock. And on a final note, on Shortland Street, I can't say that I'm a hater. I just sort of, when it comes to Shortland Street, live and let live with it. And I don't mind shaming myself out by saying that I did once purchase the Shortland Street magazine.
Oh my goodness, you did.
And people go, what, there was such a thing? Yes, I think, I don't know, 92, 93 or something, a magazine came out, and it had a CD on the front, and it had the theme music. And
oh my goodness, that was years ago. I can remember this.
Yeah, and something that Carl, is it Carl Burnett? Is that the...
Yeah.
Is that the actor?
Carl Burnett, he played Nick Harrison.
Yeah. He had a song on it, of some, like a rap or something. It's terrible. But anyway,
Which version of the theme was it? Was it the old? Is it you or
is it me? Yeah, both versions. It was that and the instrumental. There you go.
Excellent.
Chris Philpott at stuff.co.nz and Chris